Welcome to the future of space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Today we have a special guest. We have Dr. Sian Proctor. She's a geoscientist, explorer, space artist, and astronaut. She was on the mission pilot for the Inspiration 4 all civilian orbital mission to space. She's also one of the Explorers Club 50, 50 people changing the world. Her motto is called Space to Inspire, where she encourages people to use their unique, one of a kind strength and passion to inspire those within their reach and beyond. Sian, welcome to the future space.
Thank you for having me.
So, you've been to space, and I want to know your three words to describe space.
Awesome, adventurous, earth light.
Earth,
Light, earth light.
Earthlight.
I threw you off with that one, didn't I,
A
Daniel?
little bit. It's awesome. Keeps coming back, and I think that for the last one, you're gonna be like, this is your word. This is the one that's owned by Sign. How? Why? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of contradicting narrative. But beyond the technology and the science of going to space, what do you think is the human story, the nature story of going to space?
Well, I think the human story is exploration to some extent. Why go? Because I can. It reminds me of my Seeker poem that I wrote. I wrote that for a former astronaut, Richard Garriott, when he was going down to Challenger Deep. And I wrote it last year before I knew I was going to be an astronaut on Inspiration 4. But I feel like it really sums up, you know, um, this whole endeavor. And so it's a cinquain. So it's a certain type of poem. And so I just want to read it to you.
Absolutely, please.
Why go? Because I can. It's what humans do. We explore, we observe, we learn. Seeker. And then that's the image that I drew to go with it. And so I just think that part of that human endeavor is because, to some extent, we are curious beings and we want to know. Um, Not only do we want to know what's out there, we love the ability to figure out how to do it. The process of discovery, and because we have that ability to imagine and then create, um, it just opens up so much opportunity for us to go and do things that are the things of science fiction. And I love that about the human endeavor. And so when we talk about the human side of that, what comes along with that is a lot of what makes us human: our ability to connect, our ability to communicate in new ways, our ability to create music and art, and to inspire. Those are the things that, when I think about us going to the moon, Mars, and beyond, that we really want to be able to take that humanity along with us, that human, what makes us human. And it's through our ability to create and imagine and share.
It's really, I think that the human species is the we are ambassadors to life. I mean, some people will say, we're a bad species. I think we amplify. We're the best and worst of life. We take its beauty and its capacity for greatness to new level, but at the same time, sometimes we can engineer its cruelty to other level. But life is always looking to expand and to go to new places, and the human species has been successful in kind of creating a certain stability in that going somewhere. Like every time that we find ourselves to the beach, we look at the ocean and we want to get on that ocean. If we don't go, is because we haven't figured out how to go. But as soon as we figure out how to go, then of course we're going to go, and then we're going to find our way to cross to navigate through the stars and to map. I mean, I'm every time I get onto a boat and I travel to new places, I'm baffled by the work that they did back in the days, the mapping of navigating, the effort and the work done is just mind blowing. And now we're going to space. I do believe that I was talking to Scott Parzynski, who you know, that I think that in the evolution of exploration, we have surpassed the human cost of exploration. If you look back in the days of navigation on the ocean, or even going on a mountain, there was a tremendous amount of human cost because just of the physicality and the risk of it. I don't think that we're going to experience that, even if we go to space in places that are totally alien to us, because now we have the capacity to send robots, we have the capacity to study, so that by the time we get there, we don't have that human cost. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. Are paving the way. And that's one of the things that makes it even more interesting is because we have the ability to imagine and create and develop, innovate the world around us, we can take and, you know, think about the lessons learned, and we can send out, these robots now, and as artificial intelligence just continues to grow and stuff, that are going to be able to do things and set up um, habitats and space for us. Recycle the air and create habitable space. So then, when we do land, we are able to come into a space that is more supported than it ever could be before. And that's pretty exciting. I mean, the fact that we had a helicopter fly on Mars is extraordinary to think about that. But so it just gets me excited about what's going to be happening over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
I find, I mean, getting goosebumps when you talked about the helicopter on Mars, because when it launched, just the engineering aspect of what this represented, a helicopter on the top of a rocket. Well, first of all, a helicopter tucked underneath the rover at the top of a rocket, shooting up with the gravity through space, traveling all the way to Mars, landing on the rover, landing on the crane, and then flying into an atmosphere that has never been. I mean, we've never been there. We've never been to this planet, and we have this going on. For me, it's just. I mean, if someone cannot believe in the capacity of greatness, of the human ingenuity, I don't know what to say. It's incredible.
It really is. And so that's one of the things that gets me excited about the tomorrow, the future, is what will we do next?
The You were part of Inspiration 4 when Inspiration 4 went up, and the project was initiated with Jared. What he created, the story that he created, for me is, um, I come from a background of marketing and design and storytelling. Inspiration 4 was for me a 12 out of 10 in terms of what the space story could be. There was absolutely nothing to complain. Everything was just great, from the way that Jared chose the team to the fundraising, to the documentary on Netflix where we learn about your past, your father, all these elements, the human story. It was just so captivating, and it came right at the right time because there was this kind of momentum of negativity about the billionaires, and then suddenly Inspiration 4 happens, followed by William Shatner, iconic moment. Your story, like, tell us about the excitement of the project, because I think that for a lot of people, they saw it for the achievement, but I think that the human aspect of this story, of the Inspiration, was absolutely groundbreaking and inspirational.
Yeah, I agree with you that Jared and the Inspiration 4 team really thought about the impact and significance of what this mission was going to mean to the world and to history and to the future of space flight, and this idea of what I call a Jedi space, a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space. And how do you go about manifesting that? It takes time, effort, thoughtfulness, and to be able to say, I want to, do an orbital mission, but then to say the first all civilian orbital mission, but I want to take three people I don't know, for Jared to be like, we're going to do it this way. We're going to get three people, and we're going to have these pillars of hope and generosity and prosperity, and then of course his pillar of leadership, and we're going to come together and we're going to inspire the world to what the next phase of human spaceflight is going to look like. And then in the same way, we're going to raise $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, because as we solve for space, we solve for Earth, and we got to do good here. And so, to me, when I learned about Inspiration 4, I was just like, what? Like, what is this? This is this amazing thing that's been put together. Not even just from the standpoint that I was going to be a part of it. Just when I had learned about it, I was like, whoa, because I had heard about some of the other ones that were coming, Axiom and of course the suborbital flights. And then this came along, and you're just like, wait, this is different. This is special. And then to get selected to be a part of it, it was I call it my Willy Wonka moment, where I got the golden ticket, or and then the funny thing is when Jared said, and I want you to be the mission pilot. That was my Harry Potter, you're a wizard, and I'm like, me? You're a mission pilot? Wait, what? Of a Dragon spacecraft? And so it just literally last year, and we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary of our announcement. The 30th of March was when we announced to the world. I learned that I'd gotten the prosperity seat on March 7th. And so this time last year, I was still in this like deer in the headlights, like what is going on, as we're getting ready to announce. And my family didn't know, and just so much around that. But I think that, again, to create a Jedi space, you got to be thoughtful and with intent. And so that's what they did.
Now, obviously, your life has changed tremendously in the last year, but how is the sign person has changed? If you went back a year, ago, before and now, your art, your own personality, how different did this experience make you?
Well, it's interesting because I think the experience it changed my well, it refocused me on a couple of areas that are important for me that I want to, make my priority now from, post space life is what I call it. And so one of those things, and now I have a platform to be able to do some of these things. And my art and poetry, being able to share my experiences through that, and just to get people to know that I am an artist, and I am a poet, and that I want to continue to develop that craft. But also coming back with some key focused areas of, astronomy outreach, and ocean exploration, and just bringing awareness to the role our oceans play. And these are things that were already in my wheelhouse to some extent as a geoscientist, but I didn't put as much focus on them as I am now, with intent moving forward. And then also, sustainability. How do we be better stewards of our environment? And I think a lot of this is going to manifest itself through my art and poetry, and being able to reach a demographic bridging that gap between the science and the arts, and really coming together to create a new kind of narrative, I feel like.
Recently, I posted on the Future Space this article about the necessity for creative storytelling and artists going to space. I mentioned about the Renaissance in Italy, and part of the success of the Renaissance was people with a lot of money and power saw the vision and necessity for artists to create the vision of the future. And we think of the Leonardo da Vinci's and some of the sculptors and art and music, and going into space. And I make the point that Axiom and SpaceX and all the Sierra Space, all the big companies should actually compete to have the best in-house artist, the storyteller, because that's what artists do. We tell the human story, and then we create a vision of the future, while you have the engineering, figure out how to do it. How excited are you about the place of artists in that story coming out for space?
Oh, I'm super excited, and it's funny you mentioned the Renaissance, because my call sign is Leo, and a lot of people are like, Leo because that's your astrology sign, or Leo for low Earth orbit, and I'm like, no, it's Leo because my crew members considered me to be a modern day Renaissance woman, a modern day Leonardo da Vinci, and so my call sign is after that. And I feel very strongly and passionately about how we need to recombine these things. As an educator, we try to track people either into STEM or into the arts, or we separate out where there's art and science, and there's science and art, and it really is about bringing back, to some extent, a new vision of what it means to integrate these things into a modern day Renaissance society. And space has the ability to kind of trumpet the way. And I feel so fortunate that I won my ticket to space as an artist and a poet, and that's one of the things where I'm so proud of being able to say that, because I feel just like you were saying, that in order for us to be successful out into this new space, that we need to bring the people who can tell the stories, who can visualize the future, and put it out there in a way that inspires people to want to be a part of it.
How do you see that the reception now of a space? I mean, you've been traveling, you do a lot of awareness campaign, you meet a lot of people, you work with children. Um, how is the reception? Is really there's you see the increase and the desire and the motivation for people to get involved and to make a few, like, to kind of shape that future of going to space?
Yeah, I definitely see, more people wanting to talk about space and be involved in what is happening. And that's exciting. And there's, when Halloween comes along and you get all of these people whose kids have dressed up like you for Halloween, you're like, oh wow, okay. And them saying that they want to be astronauts and explorers, and they want to be the first person to walk on Mars. And you feel hopeful about the future, because it's really, as an educator, I think about how do we inspire the next generation to be problem solvers, but imagine themselves in that space, living, working, and playing, and that's exciting. But everywhere I go now, I'm seeing a lot of advertising, and a lot of like kind of promotion around the idea of space, in some form. And that, we didn't have that 5 or 10 years ago. And so it makes me excited that we're reaching places and people that weren't reached before, through, to some extent, the commercialization of space, allowing people like me to win tickets. Last year, the fact that Blue gives out a ticket to somebody on their flights. So you had Captain Kirk, William Shatner fly and become the oldest person to go to space. You have, Virgin Galactic had a campaign to give away a seat to space, and now they selected a woman of color from the Caribbean and her daughter, and that's exciting to see that that's going to happen. And so I just keep thinking, what's next? You sit back and you kind of wait, and you're like, because it's exciting. To every day, I feel like there's a new announcement of something happening in the space sector that you're like, wait, wow, I didn't see that coming. This is exciting.
Now, I've done a lot of solo wilderness expeditions and got myself in certain situations where, independently of how much training you've done, there's nothing to compare that first time that your body is in that stress, or that it goes into the fear, and then you have to kind of mentally take deep breath and remind yourself of the training. Going to space, finding yourself in that rocket, independently of all the training that you did, there must have been this sense of, this is incredible. The gravity, obviously, the rush of going up. Can you share with us a little bit of that experience when the countdown happened and the rocket went on?
Yeah, it was nothing but pure excitement on my end. A lot of people were asking me, was I afraid and stuff? I was like, no, I was so ready to go. I was so happy that I made it to that moment. The fear was the in between, because you get selected, and then you have to train and train and train. It's like getting selected for the Olympic team. Well, you still have to win the gold medal. The day of the race is still this far away, and in that time, you can't get hurt, you can't get sick. We're living in a pandemic. You're just like, okay, and you got to be the best. You got to perform. I mean, just because I won my seat to space, SpaceX made it very clear that I still had to qualify. I had to become the mission pilot. I had to be certified that I knew the Dragon capsule and the systems, and I could perform my job. And so that was a stressful 6 months, but also exciting and fun, and I miss it. And then you get to the launch day, and you're just so happy that you made it to that point. And in your, when the countdown hits zero, and the rocket launches up, you're just like, I can't believe I'm actually going. But I'm concentrating on my screen, so a lot of my focus was like on, what is the flight computer train doing. They train you in the simulator again and again and again. Me and Jared, side by side, knowing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, looking at all of that stuff, and that training just kicks in, like you said, and you do what you're supposed to do. And then you get on orbit, and you unbuckle for the first time, and you're like, what is this strange world where you're floating in space, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. And you get to look out back on our planet, and again, the cupola opening was the best moment. And when I think about my three words, Earthlight, woo, as a geoscientist, I knew that the Earth had a high reflectivity, but there's nothing better than Earthlight. And to the audience, when they think of like, well, what is Earthlight? I would invite you to close your eyes and think about a full moon rising, and how you feel when you see a full moon rising and you're being bathed in moonlight. And think about all the myths and the lore and the poetry and the art and all of that is around moonlight. Well, the earth light is 1,000 times more brilliant and beautiful and exciting and pulsating than moonlight. And I got up there, and I just was overwhelmed by it, particularly because off to the side of the Earth was the moon. And I was like, whoa, the moon is so small compared to our Earth. And you're just getting flooded in this, bathed, I say, in Earth light.
Now, you mentioned a lot about the training of going to space. Um, most of, and for the astronauts, most of the training is as always focused on the physicality, the engineering aspect, the piloting. There's been a lot of discussion within the overview community of how an added aspect of the training is how to process the information that one experiences, going up. The overview effect, the importance of preparing people, giving them a structure and where they can build that experience that they're looking at. I mean, for me, I've written about nature for 15 years. Someone can go to nature their entire lives and never get to see a different perspective because no one is helping them kind of process, look at nature in that way, look at these dynamics, try to understand what you see. I think moving forward, as more people go to space, it's going to be really important also to train them or to prepare them to understand what they're going to see. This is the overview effect. This is one Earth. This is, we're all coming from one place, so that they're able to come back. And I think that was one of the reasons why, Captain Kirk, William Shatner, was really great at capturing the emotion of the moment, is because he was primed to understand what was happening. Obviously from his background as an actor, a science fiction, but also as someone who was trained to capture the emotion of the moment. And coming back, and he's like, "And you have death, and you have life." And it's so. How much important do you think it is to include that into the training of people going to space to understand the overview and what it represents?
Yeah, I think that's one. I think that's an important aspect to go in, and I think about the fact that I had that geoscience knowledge, and then I also had the overview effect fresh in my mind, and and it's interesting because some people think, oh, they're waiting for like this moment, but it really is. I feel like if you can get trained in understanding how what you're feeling can impact you. And this is one of the reasons why I think Earthlight is a part that's overlooked, or the Earthlight impact is what I call it. Because when we talk about the overview effect, a lot of times people are talking about like you have to have this perspective of Earth from this view. But when you show people photos and videos, they don't have the same impact, like and so there's been debate about like, well, do you have to be in space to be able to have this? And when I got up there, to me, it clicked into me that, well, it's a big component of that, I believe, of why astronauts get transformed is Earthlight. Because just like I was talking about moonlight and how that has had an impact on us, it's not just about that perspective. It's also the fact that the Earth is like beaming energy upon you, and you're feeling it, on your skin. And I would love to figure out how to kind of like measure that, what I call the Earthlight impact, a little bit more, because I feel like that's a component. And if we can somehow capture that, and so I wrote a poem called Earthlight, and so okay, this is Earthlight. I thought the moonlight was my guiding light until that day my soul shimmered, eyes wide and dilated with the realization, for there I was, being bathed in earth light. Tasered by the pulsating earth glow, my weeping ego quivers, spellbound in awe at the cosmic chaos perched against the death. A clear beacon of hope and longing, etched by complex molecules and spiraling DNA, golden strands of energy cascading outward, encapsulating hopes and dreams, existence and affirmation. The baby's blanket ripped away. I howl at the sensation. Love struck in suspension. My mind struggles to comprehend so much meta transcending time and space. Who will hear the cries of the generations? Aphrodite simmers under the weight of memories. I hold court among the stars and testify to the cosmos, all the hopes set adrift. Let us be set free in a sea of forgiveness for what we have not seen. If only we could all be baptized by Earthlight.
Beautiful. I do. We are a physical species. We need to experience things. There's a huge difference between a simulated environment and the physicality of a real, like, when the body actually, we're our bodies are this organisms of senses, and so we're made to connect and interact and process the information. And obviously there's so much that you can simulate to a certain extent, but it cannot replicate this in real life. um, Connecting and and taking in, and it's, for me, I always say, it's like, even nature, it's an exercise of humility and perspective, because I think your body recognizes when there's something that is bigger than the body. um, you can be in the best movie theater and having a space show with the stars, and it's amazing. But being by yourself or alone, or even with group of people in a desert and looking up into the night sky, your body, your mind understands that this is something so much bigger. So going to space and seeing the Earth and the Earth light, yes, you can promote it, you can teach people about it, but it cannot be replicated because you need to be there. And if everybody can, if just going to space so that people can experience that by itself is a good good reason to send people to space.
No, I totally agree because you really get a sense of just how special our planet is, I think. And and the added sensation of floating in space. So that again, that's sensory. And so I think that there was like, to get the overview effect, it's about understanding that there is this transformation that can occur. But some of the things that are involved in that transformation is that ability to be free of gravity pulling on you, having earthlight bathing you, and then having this perspective of being able to see the earth in a way that you couldn't imagine before. And you got to bring all of these things together, and along with the sounds of the craft uh, and the knowing that just beyond the walls of the spacecraft is death. And so there's this all encompassing kind of like thing that has to come together in order to get that sensation.
Now, share with us a little bit about your creative process. I was listening to you and I was resonating a lot to the words and to the rhythm. I know that myself, when I go out on expeditions, I have this aha moment where I know, like, my brain, either I received it somehow, I don't know, but like there's a click where, like, okay, I have the vision of what I need to write and what I need to create. And even there are days that I can stare at the screen and nothing comes out. And then sometime, and then for some reason, on that particular day, on that particular minute, there's a click that happens. Is it similar to you, or
Absolutely.
it is?
Oh yeah, I'm one of those people who, I will be kind of like, I'll get this kind of thought in my head about what I want to create, particularly like visually, and then I'll kind of like it will be lingering there, and then I'm finally like, okay, I gotta like sit down and just kind of start drawing and playing in this space, and then then this something emerges, and I'm like, oh wow. I didn't realize that that was, where I was going, but it always surprises me to some extent. And then, when I write the poetry, again, it was this nagging thing, like Earthlight, that poem was sitting there, it was waiting, it was like kind of scratching in my brain saying, hey, I'm here. I didn't have all the words and stuff. But then one day I just kind of like, okay, I got to write this out, and I started putting it and massaging it and making it into this thing. And and then I was like, oh, and it's funny because it gets to a point where you're just like, oh, okay, that's what I want to say. It's done. Like I'm good. I can move on to the next thing. And that's part of what I love about being an artist and a poet and having that ability to create is that it manifests for some reason, and then you get it out, and then it's there living out in the world for others to appreciate and hopefully take something back from it. And then you're off building the next thing that's bubbling inside, tapping into the cosmos, I guess, and being able to put that out again. And I feel very fortunate. I kind of joke that I don't know who I'm channeling, but in the last 2 years, I've been tapping into all kinds of creativity that I didn't know was there before. And it's been a wonderful experience.
You think that that art, that creative um, outlets, I believe needs a certain reality to come out. That when you're caught into the 9 to 5, it's a lot harder. And artists, they're by necessity need to live on the fringes of society because it is their responsibility to remind the rest of us of a different perspective. Because once you're in that grind of the 9 to 5 and you have a family, you have to pay the bills, all that, most of the people will get into that same challenging place. I always say it's really easy to be a monk up in the mountain in the cave when there's a little disturbance and you can just be one with yourself. But when you come down to the city with all the distractions, even the monks have trouble putting their cell phone down. And I've always felt that our culture kind of lost, like the artists now are more concerned about being marketable and where they can sell their things. And then it becomes more about content creating rather than artists. Like for me, content creators create for the public. Artists want to lead and inspire the public. It's not about getting that like, but it's about making you see the world in a different way. And if it's make you like, that's the consequence. It's not the purpose of what I'm trying to do. So I think more and more there needs to be a conscious decision to support artists so that they can do. I mean, that's what Leonardo did in the Medici. They were like, here's the funds for a year. Do what you do best. I don't know what it's going to be, but I believe that there's going to be something. Would you
That
agree?
would be amazing. Yes, that's the hardest thing is that I look at my situation and the fact that I have this stuff like this experience and this creativity kind of bubbling inside me, but I have no time. I have no time to put it out there because I still have my day job. I'm still a geoscience professor. And I have to pay the bills, and I have all these other life responsibilities, and so art and that ability to express myself takes a back seat to all of this other stuff that is on my to-do list. And I keep trying to figure out, well, how do I get supported in this space, this other space that I want to be in? And it's not easy,
Yeah.
because again, you don't want to be like one of those people who's just doing the things for the likes and the quick money, because that's not about that. When I think about the NFT space and trying to provide art, and I was talking to a friend about I was on a podcast about, or a Twitter space about NFTs, and support and stuff, and whether I felt supported in that space. And I said, well, it's kind of different because, the kind of art that I create doesn't lend itself really to the kind that is happening there, where it's this generative thing where, it's, personal profile pictures and things like that. And so, but as an artist, you're like, wow, should I be over there, and doing this, it's hard to navigate. I feel very lucky that I have, a small group of people who support me on my Patreon. They're the ones who, if it wasn't for them, I never would have gotten to the point where I would have applied for Inspiration 4 and won that seat. They were the people who kind of like helped lift me up, and I'm glad that they have programs like that where you can. I have a postcard club, so they get a postcard every month from me with my art and poetry, and I can. So I'm creating for, and if you think of Leonardo da Vinci and them, they had patrons. They had people who, like you said, hey, go and do this, give back to society. And but we need more of that, I think. And like you were saying, it would be great to see the companies that are putting people to space have, robust, artist in residence programs for artists to be able to be supported and be able to share, the things that they're doing with a broad audience.
Yeah, if any of the big companies are out there, yes, you need to have your artists in residence and have people, and then you give them a year to create something, and then it's rotating. But for 1 year, the artist has to create a story, a human story, and they can just let their imagination go without feeling it's like, okay, they need to get there. And it's not about how much following they have on social media, because for me that is total, it defeats the purpose. If someone is more focused on developing their and it doesn't take away from the ones who are great at it, it's just that the incentive and the energy is different.
It absolutely is. And that was one of the things that I was so worried about for the prosperity seat, because it was a Twitter contest. And when I finally decided to put myself out there and apply, they had people who had 5 million followers on Instagram, and, and on YouTube, and hundreds of thousands. Like, and I looked at that, and it's easy to get intimidated and be like, oh my God, they'll never pick me. They're looking for somebody who's a big influencer in this space. But I told myself, well, if I just even apply and put my poem out there, it's a win. And that's the thing, that when we talk ourselves out of opportunity, because we think, I suffer from imposter syndrome, that we think that they won't pick us, that we won't be good enough, that there's other people far more qualified. And I try to counter that voice and say, don't talk yourself out of opportunity. Let them decide if you're qualified or not. It's a win if you just put yourself out there, and you put your name into the hat. And you never know when your name's going to be picked. And in this case, golden ticket moment.
Golden, well, the golden tickets. You have your book out. I think I read correctly, but it did a big jump in the ranking in Amazon. But Space to Inspire, which is a collection of your poetry, correct?
It's my art and poetry. So I take and I make art, and then I write poems to go with it. And it kind of documents me as an artist and a poet over the last 2 years, because again, I started, all of this was created from the summer of 2020 onward, where I was in, like most of us, cooped up in because of COVID inside and needing a creative outlook. And some people turn to baking and cooking or singing and playing music. And I happened to be going through a divorce at that time. And so, my ex-husband was in one part of the house and I was in my other part, and I needed something to do. And I decided that I would, dabble in art. And so I started as a collage artist, because I didn't consider myself, an artist able to draw and paint. And then as I was doing that and sharing it, people were like, "Oh, this is really great. You should do more." And then I started dabbling in watercolors, and then line drawings and markers, and really just kind of getting into mixed media, because not being formally trained, I just feel like I just am playing in this fun space. And but I also wanted to find my authentic voice. Like, this was visually, I've always been a visual spatial person. Both my master's and PhD research was in visual spatial. So creating something like that was important to me. But then, adding the poetry allowed me to add another whole dimension to my art to express what I was feeling. And I feel like my authentic self has emerged as a result of this. And I feel so lucky and fortunate to find my voice in my 50s, my authentic self emerging. And it's exciting. And so this book of Space to Inspire, The Art of Inspiration, is I self-published it as my kind of expression of how these last 2 years has changed me as a person, by becoming an artist and a poet.
Well, congratulations on this achievement. It's amazing now to have a book, and it's out on Amazon and it's doing good. And um, I think it's a wonderful thing to look back in the journey, because we have our thoughts and our words, and we have your painting, and I have in my book Field of Wild, the photography and the writing, but to have it together creating a story feels it's quite compelling. It's a nice achievement. So I'm really glad that that COVID at least give you the opportunity for you to give you the book. Um, so what's next now? There's a lot of We're a year after Inspiration 4. COVID is reopening. COVID is becoming slowly something of the past. The world is reopening. You and I were going to be at Year's Night in April in Los Angeles, and then the one in Florida. There's I know that last year you were at Ascent in Vegas late in the year. There's a bunch of events going on. So what's next for Sign?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of time off this summer. I used to take time off in the summers, as a college professor and travel. And I've missed that, since 2020, us going into the COVID lockdown. I really miss being able to just kind of find some time to myself, work on some art, work on some poetry, really kind of get my new orbit, this new thing, way in which I'm resonating in the world, a handle on it. Because I came back and I kind of just was like, yeah, I'll do this, and I've been so busy, and my schedule has been so packed for the last 6 months, and in the next couple of months, that I've just said, you know what, I need to take a moment to reflect, and just kind of take time for myself. So I'm going to take June and July off, and I'm going to travel with my brother a little bit, and travel by myself, and just kind of get grounded as we move into the 1 year anniversary of that historic mission. And hopefully I'll have some art and poetry to share with everybody.
Of course you will. I mean, after this, you need that certain. It's like having a canvas or having a page. If you keep writing on it, if you keep painting on it, you add layers, and there's a certain beauty of it. But at one point, you have to create that space. You know, you have to start with that blank canvas, that blank page, and see and give room, create room. Because I think that your brain by default wants to expand and create, but most of the time we're constantly kind of making it on defense. There's too much stimuli, there's too much to process, so it's filtering rather than expanding. And sometimes you kind of like you need to clear the desk so that you can have a certain clarity and let your body kind of like, okay, now I can expand, I can go to places where I didn't go before. So I can't wait. I'm pretty sure the public is really looking forward to the next book of poetry, and what that blank canvas is going to bring to you. Sign, we're looking forward.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me, and I look forward to finally meeting you in person at Yuri's night.
Absolutely. We'll continue that conversation. So until then, wishing you all the best, and I will see you very soon. Dr. Sian Proctor, thank you so much.
Thank you.